I've been practicing now in New Zealand as a medical doctor for the past 8 years, but this journey has not been an easy one, but it's been worthwhile and I've enjoyed myself in New Zealand so far. Now, I'm going to share my journey with you of how I became a medical doctor in New Zealand. But I want you to know that I did not study in New Zealand, okay? I graduated in Nigeria as a medical doctor, got licensed there, and then I moved to New Zealand. If you watched my previous video, my move from Nigeria to New Zealand, I shared all my story there. But if you haven't watched it, go and watch it right now. But in this video, I'm going to be showing my journey of how I became a medical doctor in New Zealand. In other words, how I became licensed to be able to practice in New Zealand, and I've been practicing now for 8 years. But there was a 5-year gap. Okay, I had a 5-year gap waiting before I became licensed here, and I'm going to share everything with you. My hope is that this video would inspire you, my story would inspire you in whichever journey you're currently on. And if you're watching me as an international medical graduate wanting to come into New Zealand, or you're already in New Zealand and you're hoping and desirous of practicing medicine here, I'm sure that my story would inspire you. So hang on there. Welcome to this YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Blessing Ekunai. I'm the confident woman, okay? And I'm just here to inspire, to motivate, to inspire confidence, in you. And you could be a man watching me, it's okay. You're welcome here. If you're yet to hit that subscribe button, feel free to hit that subscribe button, okay? In the next few weeks, I'm going to be sharing my New Zealand journey, everything about New Zealand. And if you're just wanting to, live in New Zealand or move to New Zealand, you want to hear all the gist about New Zealand, this channel this next few weeks is for you, okay? So do not miss any episode by clicking that subscribe button and turning on your notification bell. Right, thank you. Okay, let's go straight into it. Let's go straight into what I have for today. How I became a doctor here in New Zealand. So what happened? From my last video, I shared with you how I graduated in Nigeria, became a doctor before coming to New Zealand to be with my husband, who was already living here in New Zealand. Okay, for me though, I had done a bit of a research about New Zealand. I knew that I had to write some exams here in New Zealand before being able to practice, and my goal when I came to New Zealand was, number one, no pregnancy. Okay, spend the first 2 years getting clearing my exams, getting everything done, and get my license, and then maybe think of pregnancy along the way. But God had other plans for me. Or maybe I was not serious about my plans of not wanting to get pregnant yet. 3 months into my stay in New Zealand, I fell pregnant, and boy, I know that this may not be everybody's cup of tea, but for me at the time, it was disappointing. I was stressed. I was not happy because I felt that at the time I was not looking to get pregnant. I mean, don't get me wrong, children are a blessing, they're a gift from God. But because I already had my plans and I knew that pregnancy would just sort of distort those plans, I felt down at the time. I almost became depressed during that period, because I knew that with pregnancy, I started worrying, how am I going to study, how am I going to pay for these exams, how am I going to be able to cope, how am I going to navigate all of these challenges. Well, and to make matters worse, at the time I didn't have a job then. And then I started thinking, even if I was going to apply for a job, how would people, not job as a medical doctor, but just doing something, right, to make an income, how would someone, an employer employ someone who's already pregnant? So all of those things just made matters, I felt like made matters worse or complicated for me. And I was very stressed at the time. But as God will have it, I eventually got a job. Glory to God. Story for another day. Okay, I'm going to do a different episode. A different video on that, right? My first job in New Zealand. That's another story for another day. But I got a job anyways. And I started working. My goal was my time, and I realized that things have changed now in regards to what you need to do to practice medicine in New Zealand. When I wrote my exams about 9 years ago, there were 3 steps. So at the time you had to write IELTS, that's what people call it, IELTS, yes. You have to write that. You also have to write PLAB 1, so UK exam. Or you can write AMC, that's the Australian Medical Council exam, or the USMLE exam, right? So either of those three, and then you write the NZREX exam. So I had three different lots of exams to write at the time. So my goal was to write IELTS here and then probably go to either Australia or a nearby country, because I mean, we don't write PLAB. They still don't write it now in New Zealand. So to write PLAB and then prepare for NZREX. So NZREX is the clinical exam, right? So that was my pathway at that time. And so I'd written IELTS in New Zealand. Unfortunately, I didn't meet the required bandwidth for or band scores for NZREX. At the time, you had to get 7.5 in listening and speaking, you know, and then seven in reading and writing. If you are familiar with IELTS, you would know what I mean. But things have changed now. Okay, now with NZREX, the requirement is 7 in all of those areas, so which is a lot easier than when I wrote mine. I wrote IELTS, right? Unfortunately, how my life. Okay, God has, God has amazing plans for us. And to be honest, I would not have had my life go in any other way. Right. I'll backtrack a bit. So I wrote IELTS, and I didn't meet the requirement, like I said earlier. But the plan was to then prepare for PLAB and hopefully go to it's not UK, go to Australia, which is closer to New Zealand, and traveling all the way to the UK. But by the time I felt pregnant, you know, started working and things were not so easy. My pregnancy was not that bad, but it was stressful. I felt like I was stressed. I felt like I was forgetting everything that I had learned in medical school. Because by the way, I did not do my housemanship, so I didn't do house job in Nigeria. I just finished medical school and came to New Zealand, right? And so I felt like I was losing touch with medicine and all the things I had learned. I started losing confidence also in myself about, you know, whether I could prepare for this exam properly or not. And I remember, you know, thinking maybe after pregnancy, because I just could not get myself to prepare properly for the exam. I thought, okay, after I deliver, and then I would be able to, you know, maybe get my exams done, PLAB and everything. But life was just going in the ways I never planned. I was going through lots of stress at the time, marriage stress, because again, new environment. Should I say new marriage? I've never been in a marriage before, but everything was new for me, right? And the stress of being in a new environment, also trying to adjust to the reality of marriage, you know, husband or being a wife, and all of those things, right? And so I think that took a toll on me. And then this unexpected pregnancy. Anyway, cut a long story short, I gave birth, and at the time I said, okay, let me now begin to prepare for the exams and stuff like that. I felt pregnant again, baby number. So I'm like, oh God, what is wrong with you? And I just felt again like, blessing. You know, even though I was making progress in that area of my life, I felt like my career was on standstill. And if I'm being honest with you, that didn't make me feel fulfilled, you know. And I just felt I was in New Zealand and I wasn't making progress. You know, a lot of times when things are not really going well for us in life, we seem to focus on those things that are not going well, and we think everything else is not, you know, nothing else is going well, right? And that was my situation, because even apart from, you know, my family life, at work was not really going well. I felt like I was a bit victimized at work, if I'm being honest. Like work I was doing at the job I was doing at the time, after having my second pregnancy, my employer then sort of made me redundant at work. So for me, that was a blow to me. You know, I lost my confidence at the time. I felt like I was not really good enough. I felt like my world was crashing. You know, at the time I was feeling like, oh, you can't succeed academically or in your career. The job you're doing is you're not doing it very well again. My marriage was not going really good at the time, so everything was just like crashing down for me. And if I'm being honest with you, in hindsight, I think I became depressed, or I was depressed at the time. Things were not going well for me, and I began to just lose confidence in who I was. Also, if I'm being honest with you, I started considering maybe I would not be good at medicine. I started thinking of something else. In fact, if I'm, to be really open with you, you watching me, some people had already began telling me, I think you should go and do something else. They suggested, different courses that I could do. Also still in the health area, but not as a medical doctor. And as much as those professions are good, but it's not what I really wanted to do. For me, I enjoy medicine, something that I've desired all, since I was a child. And just living that, I felt like, oh my gosh, how would I think one thing that could not make me not do medicine was thinking about how I would see myself in years to come. I was thinking, would I regret that I did not even try? I think I would have regretted it if I didn't even try. So I told myself I would give it a shot. I would try. I will attempt the exam. If I don't do well, then I know that at least I tried, rather than just give up. I even thought to the point of, because at the point I started working as an administrator, when I moved to change jobs, I thought maybe I would be good as an administrator, and I'll just keep going up, up the ladder, and then specialize in, maybe become a manager in one field or one day like that, But again, I thought, listen, that is you settling. And I just want to encourage someone here today, you're listening to me, and maybe you're about to settle. You feel like you can't go further on this journey. You're scared of failing. You're scared that you may not actually make it. You're feeling tired, you're feeling exhausted. I want you to know that your feelings are valid, but it doesn't mean that you cannot succeed. I want you to try your best and face your fears. Give yourself a shot. Take each day at a time. Make a plan. I know that if I could do it, you can do it. And if I made it, you too can make it. So that was how I was feeling at the time. It was hard, right? So second pregnancy with redundancy and all of that. But I was able to still pull through. And I remember one time, I was in the kitchen and I was just crying, telling God, what is going on? I feel like my life is on standstill. And the Holy Spirit said something to me, you could go back to Nigeria and do your housemanship. And I was like, what? Really? And long story short, I thought I still had my license. My medical license in Nigeria had not expired. And I thought, oh yeah, I could do that, because I was losing confidence in myself. I was forgetting things. I felt like, I had not really practiced medicine. I was wondering, how was I going to be to do it here? So all of those thoughts started making me have doubts in myself. But when the Holy Spirit gave me that idea, I thought, yes, this is a good idea. And I shared it with my husband, and thankfully he agreed. And so I went back to Nigeria. Oh my goodness. Yes, I went back to Nigeria, and I was there for 1 year. And thankfully I was able to practice medicine and do my house job in the university I finished from, or in the hospital I finished from, Lagos University Teaching Hospital in Nigeria, Luth. And gratitude, special thanks to my mom also, who was able to support me and help me make that dream a reality. And good thing is, while I was in Nigeria, remember trying to prepare for my exams, okay, I was able to rewrite out because I did not make the cutoff, the points in New Zealand. So I went back to just to rewrite out, and the plan was to write out and write PLAB. Okay, now I wrote out first time in New Zealand, I wrote out again in Nigeria, and unfortunately I had to write out again because my second attempt was not good enough. Okay, so I wrote out again, in Nigeria for the third time. And if I'm being honest, I feel like I actually wrote out before I left Nigeria. So because I think I wrote out 4 times. My goodness. The English I will speak, oh goodness. Anyways, so I wrote out again, and this time around I passed. Okay, I passed, glory to God. After I passed, I then had to apply for PLAB. So I applied for PLAB, you know, that's the exam, the MCQ, PLAB 1. I wrote that in Nigeria and then finished my housemanship, came to New Zealand. And I remember within the first month of being back in New Zealand in 2016, because I traveled to New Zealand, so I traveled to Nigeria in 2015. Coming back to New Zealand in 2016, the first month of returning, I got my results that I passed PLAB. I was over the moon. I was so excited. So, my life, my journey. It was fulfilling that I passed PLAB, but it was not the end. I forgot to mention that when I was going back to Nigeria to do my housemanship, I went to my 2 boys. My first son was already 1 year old. My second son at the time I was traveling was 10 weeks old. Oh, do not ask me how I coped, but this babe you see right here is a resilient babe. Well, I didn't do it alone. My in-laws, my parents, I got that support that I needed in Nigeria, right? And my husband, very supportive also. So credit to them and kudos to God, okay? And also kudos to me for working very hard. So anyways, back to my journey. I got to New Zealand and I began to then I tried to apply for NZREX. That's the exam that I needed to write here in New Zealand. Yeah, so that was the final step, right? And I'm not sure how long it takes now, but then, you know, then they only used to write it 3 times a year. And so there's usually a wait list. I think at the time that you could only have probably 32 slots per time, either 16 or 32 slots per time, right? So even though I'd applied to write the exam, I think I applied in 2016, you know, but I didn't get a slot until 2017. That was the next available slot. It was 2017 October, I believe, that I wrote my exams. If I'm not wrong, October 2017, that was when I wrote the exam. So I wrote PLAB there and it was smooth. But what I would encourage is it was a lot of practice. So if you're wanting to practice medicine here and you're preparing for exams, get a study partner. And get a study partner, very important. You know, it would really help you. Yeah, so that was very helpful. I still remember my study partner. Yeah, God bless her, Wasani, wherever you are. Anyway, so that was very helpful for me. Yeah, so I did that and to the glory of God, wrote my exams and I passed. Glory to God. I mean, being a doctor, you think that when you're in medical school, you know, you're writing exams and you pass. That's just the beginning. You have not seen anything. I feel like our life is just about reading. Even till now. I'm still writing the exams. Like, when does it end? Anyways. So I passed the NZREX to the glory of God. And if you're wanting to write the exam, I also encourage you to get, you know, past questions. There are lots of past questions. At that time, I think what was very helpful for me, which I'm going to share in my upcoming video, my next video, is there were a group of people who we studied together. Apart from me having a study partner, I had a group of people I studied with. And there was a particular person who had gone ahead of us, who was also coaching us. I remember then it was like every week we would all gather together and she would teach us, you know, all of these examinations. It's clinical, NZREX is clinical exam, like OSCE, you know. So it was, I mean, the practice was very helpful. So I think that's something that I would encourage you to be aware of. Yep. So anyways, I passed the exam and I thought that was the end. That was not the end. So if you go on the Medical Council website, it's part of, for you to actually become licensed to practice, you must get a job first of all. Okay, you must have secured a job here in New Zealand as a medical doctor. So I remember then that people used to tell us, people who had gone ahead of us would tell us the hardest part of the process is actually looking for a job. You know, we used to think that the hardest part was passing NZREX. People will say the hardest part is getting a job. We call it PGY1, okay? That's like the first year of housemanship. There are 2 years of housemanship here in New Zealand. So after all of that process, you get your secure PGY1, okay? And it's at the point of securing PGY1, or after you secure PGY1 position, then you can then apply to the Medical Council. This was my pathway, okay? Apply to Medical Council to to get licensed to practice, right? So I mean, for me, I remember at the time, because I'm sharing my own personal story. For me at the time, I remember having to, after passing, I started applying to all facts. I sent an email to all the recruitment agencies, in all of the district health boards. We call them district health boards, more like the big hospitals or the tertiary hospitals in New Zealand, right? At the time, telling them I'm an NZREX, I've just passed, send them a CV and all of that. And I remember there was one hospital, right, where I got a reply. In fact, many people replied me and saying, no, 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 somebody didn't reply me. But I remember one particular hospital replied me saying, oh, they have actually just put out, an advertisement, and that I could send my CV. And to glory of God, I sent my CV, and right, and as God will have it, I got the job. But also God used somebody, a wonderful woman in my life. And this is the power of relationship, guys. Don't say that you're going to do things by yourself. There's the power of relationships. God used a wonderful woman to actually help me. It wasn't just my qualification, but the influence of that woman was also very, very valuable. I will never forget her in my story, my New Zealand journey. Seriously, I would never forget her. So God used her to also help me secure that job, to the glory of God. And so that was how I got my first job, and I was able to practice in New Zealand. And to be fair, many times you have to get out of your city, out of your comfort zone, out of your familiar environment. Okay, a lot of times for us international medical graduates, you end up getting our first jobs in rural areas. I'm not saying you can't get it in the city, but most of the time, because it's like a golden opportunity, the jobs are not readily available. As doctors here, for us, it's not readily available. Okay. So just something that you should be aware of. And something that I should also say, I've shared my own story about what things were like. This was 9 years ago. Things have changed now. They're not exactly the same way, but I'm going to be sharing with you what the update is now, so that if you are listening to me and now you want to practice, I'll share that with you in the next video. Okay, but one thing I should also let you know in terms of the pathways, my pathway was the way it was because the school, well, I'll say the country that I'm from, which is Nigeria, okay, our health pathway or our medical pathway is not a comparable system to the New Zealand health pathway, right? And so because they do not recognize our medical degree, we have to go through all of that process. Whereas if you finished from a country like, not an African country, okay, if you finish from, there are about 29 countries currently, like if you finish from those countries and you've practiced for some months, then you just need to apply for registration here. You don't need to go through all of that process I've talked about. So so if you finish from countries like the United Kingdom or the United States or Greece or Iceland, or Germany, Italy, all of these countries, right, Luxembourg, many of these countries, if you finish from them, Singapore, you don't have to go through all of these things I've said, like NZREX, blah, nah. You're good. So this is not your pathway, okay? But I'll share the real pathway or the current pathway in my next video. But this that I've shared with you is my own journey. Now, I don't know where you're at watching me, but I want you to know, and I want to speak to you listening to me today. If you're already a medical doctor and you desire to come to New Zealand, or you're already in New Zealand and you're feeling exhausted as a medical doctor, you're yet to write your exams, I want you to know that you can do it. Do not let fear hold you back. Do not let anybody sow seeds of doubts in your heart or in your mind. People told me when I came to New Zealand, oh, some doctors have come to New Zealand, they could not practice, they could not write the exams, they became taxi drivers, they became this, they became that. No, nothing wrong with being a taxi driver, don't get me wrong. But they tried to water down my goal, water down my dreams, right? And I did not let that happen. So do not let anyone water down your dreams or water down your vision, water down your desire, for your career, for your future. Okay, you can do it. If I could do it, you can do it. So go for it without any doubt in your heart. Face your fears. If you're afraid, face it afraid. Okay. And I hope this helps you. Now, if I was to do this all over again, what will I do differently? I'll tell you what I'll do differently. What I'll do differently would be, number one, I will do my house job. I would not have come to New Zealand without my house job. Okay, because that was crazy. Going back to Nigeria for 1 year, my journey was like this, but yours can be straight. Okay, but I thank God for it. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I would have written my PLAB in Nigeria before again coming to New Zealand. So I wouldn't have come, gone, no. I'd have done everything at once. Okay, if I was to do it all over again. And now I'll tell you again, in my next video, but now you can do PLAB 1 and PLAB 2. Okay, if you don't PLAB 1 and PLAB 2, you don't have to write NZREX. So that's a relief. So things are different from when I did mine again 9 years ago. So I would have done my PLAB 1 and 2, in Nigeria if I had to do it all over again. Yeah, and I think one thing I would also encourage is observership. So sometimes having that bit of experience in New Zealand, seeing how things are done, because the way things are done back home in Nigeria where I practice is so different, so different. Everything here is electronic. And so I found that very different here. So if you have the opportunity to do observership, just basically means you going to hospitals, and you just sort of observing, working with the house officer, and observing how things are being done, how they do their discharge summaries, how they do their practice, everything, but again, that requires a bit of process. You have to apply. You can't just walk in and start observing. No, there's a bit of a process there. So I think that's about how I began to practice, how I became a medical doctor in New Zealand. I'm going to do a different video again because now it's been 8 years and I've done 8 years of practice here, and now I'm specializing in psychiatry. That's another journey, story for another day, and I'm going to share that with you also. Okay, how I specialized in New Zealand. But if this has helped you, let me know. If this has inspired you, let me know. If you have a question, let me know. Just leave me the comments, okay? If you have any question, let me know. I've shared this video because many people wanted to know. There were more people who were inquiring about this from my last video, especially on social media. But I still plan to talk about the video of how to move to New Zealand. Okay, I'm going to post that also soon. There's so many videos to post about my New Zealand journey, but bear with me. I'll post them one by one, okay, one step at a time. But let me know if you found this helpful. Until I see you again next time, do not give up. Keep swinging, okay? And your dreams will definitely come true. Your dream is valid, right? I'm Blessing Ekunayo. Bye for now.